Hi, first grade. Today we are going to work on first grade measurement. We are going to take a look at and compare two different measurements and see which one is correct. Like always, I'll read the problem to you, then we will read it together before we take a look at the measurement. Here we go. Kay and Joe both measured the length of the shoe. Kay says the shoe is 8 cubes long. Joe says it is 6 cubes. Who do you agree with? Why? Let's read together before we take a look at the measurement. Kay and Joe both measured the length of the shoe. Kay says the shoe is 8 cubes long. Joe says it is 6 cubes. Who do you agree with? Why? Let's take a look. So far, I can see the shoe. I wonder how long it's going to be. Now I can see where Kay and where Joe's measurements are going to be. We will see Kay's here and Joe's will go on the bottom. Let's take a closer look. Go ahead and pause the video. Take some time to figure out who you agree with and why. We can see that Kay has 8 cubes and Joe has 6 cubes. So whose measurement is correct? Once you've thought about your answer, come back to the video and figure out who was right. Welcome back. So taking a closer look, I can see that Kay has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cubes. We can see that she started at a starting point and she ended at the ending point of the shoe. I can see that she doesn't have any overlapping cubes and she also doesn't have any spaces or gaps. Let's take a look at Joe's. I can see that Joe started at a starting point and ended at the ending point. I can also see that all of the cubes are the same size and there is no overlapping of any of the tools. But there's one thing that I do notice. In between the cubes, there are these big spaces or gaps. If those spaces or gaps had been closed, like Kay's, then we would have been able to fit more cubes, which means that Kay is correct. The shoe is 8 cubes long. Great job. Let's take a look at another problem. Clark and Fern both measured the scissors. Clark says the scissors are 4 paper clips long. Fern says the scissors are 7 dimes long. Who do you agree with? Why? Let's read that together before we take a look at the measurements. Clark and Fern both measured the scissors. Clark says the scissors are 4 paper clips long. Fern says the scissors are 7 dimes long. Who do you agree with? Why? Let's take a look at the measurement. Here are the scissors. Now we can see that Clark's measurement will be on the top and Fern's will be on the bottom. Let's look at how they measured. Go ahead and pause the video. Figure out who do you agree with and why. Once you're done, come back and figure out the answer. So far, I can see the 4 paper clips that Clark used to measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see that he starts at a starting point and he ends at the ending point. Each paper clip is the same size. There is no overlapping and no gaps. So this must be 4 paper clips long. But let's look at Fern's. Fern is using dimes to measure. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Each dime is the same size, and she leaves no spaces or gaps in between and does not overlap any of the dimes. She also starts at the starting point and ends at the ending point. So this must be 7 dimes long. So who should I agree with? Well, I agree with both of them. Even though they use different tools, they can get different answers. As long as they follow the rules, they are both correct. Let's take a look at the next problem. Mark and Kim both measured the notebook. Mark thinks the notebook is 8 cubes long. Kim thinks the notebook is 6 paper clips long. Who do you agree with? Why? Let's read this problem together before we see the measurement. Mark and Kim both measured the notebook. Mark thinks the notebook is 8 cubes long. Kim thinks the notebook is 6 paper clips long. Who do you agree with and why? Let's go ahead and take a look at the measurement. Here's the notebook. So far, I can see that the measurement will have Mark's measurement on the top and Kim's measurement on the bottom. Let's take a look at each measurement. We can see that Mark used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cubes, and Kim used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paper clips. Go ahead and pause the video. Decide who you agree with and why, then come back to figure out the answer. Welcome back. So I can see that Mark used cubes that are all the same size. He also made sure there was no spaces or gaps left between his measuring tools, and he did not overlap them. I can see Kim followed those same rules. She did not overlap her tools. They are all the same size, and there are no spaces or gaps in between. But I noticed something different that Kim did that Mark did not. What is it? Great job. Kim started at the starting point and ended at the ending point. We can see that Mark overlaps the starting point and the ending point, which means that the measurement has too many tools. It's important to start at the starting point and the ending point of the object that you're measuring. Great job. Let's take a look at one last measurement today. About how many math counters long is the tissue box? Let's read that together. About how many math counters long is the tissue box? On this screen, you'll see how we can measure the tissue box using math counters. The first thing I want to remember is to line up my math counter with the starting point of the tissue box. Let's take a look. You can see that the math counter is placed at the same starting point as the tissue box. Now I'm going to place my next math counter to help me measure. I want to remember not to overlap the counters or leave any spaces or gaps. Let's take a look. Great. You can see there's no spaces or gaps, and also they do not overlap. One other thing I notice is they are the same size. It is important to use tools that are the same size when measuring. Great, no overlapping or spaces. It's also the same size. Let's take a look at the next ones. Now when I place my last counter, I want to make sure that it lines up pretty well with the end point. If it goes over a little bit past the end point, that's okay. Or if there's just a tiny bit of space left in between the counter and the end point, that's okay as well. We can see that it goes over a tiny bit. That's okay. Let's go ahead and count about how many math counters long the tissue box is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The tissue box is about 7 math counters long. Great job! Now it's your turn. Go ahead and finish answering all the questions on the page. Great job today, first grade.